Hey riders, welcome to BMR Interviews, where we talk to the most interesting people in the motorcycle world.
This is Tom from Best Motorcycle Roads, and we're talking to Jon DelVecchio today. John's been an avid motorcycle rider, a trainer, even wrote a book that we'll talk about later. But yeah, I mean, how's it going, John? Tell us who you are.
It's going fantastic. I'm really glad to be here. It's you're my new favorite motorcycle podcast. It's like I found you a couple months ago and I just binged everything that you guys put out there, and it's a really good podcast for benchmarking. Geez, am I doing what they're doing? Oh yeah, I wish I could add this to them and send them emails. And what if I was sitting in the seat right there? We could have a good conversation about that.
You must be a really bored guy if we're entertaining you.
Well, listen, I got a real big laundry list of things I'm going to protest right now about what you've been saying on the podcast. But thanks for having me on. I've been riding since 2001. And I became a motorcycle trainer, I think, for MSF in 2007. Did that for about 10 years. Then I branched off onto my own, and I've been doing more what I call next level training for mostly BMW riders at their rallies, but for other people as well.
Sure.
And that's, wrote a book and that mimics my lesson plans for the different venues, coaching tours, parking lots, track days and stuff like that. And so I sent you the book and in the hopes that you would like it and perhaps maybe it could help your listeners a little bit down the road. But I'm kind of like a fanboy here. I really want to have some time to talk bikes with you.
Yeah. So it sounds like you and us are very similar. Like we have a group of guys that we ride with. You have a group of guys who ride with. Tell us about that. How did that start for you?
If we rewind to about 2009, I really didn't have a lot of people to ride with. I mean, I'd had my motorcycle license for 7-8 years or whatever. And I didn't really have a group of people to ride with. I really wasn't into the bar hopping scene. I wasn't a sport bike guy. And I found that, I'm going to start my own group. And I did this meetup.com. It's Facebook for local things basically. And over the years, we've had people just trickle into this group. And I think we're going for our 16th year next year. This is our 15th year. And we've done so many miles together, probably, combined hundreds of thousands of miles together. And we're a real good brothership. And we have come from all walks of life, all different, ages, backgrounds, cultures, and things like that. And one of the things that we focused on is building our skills. And that's kind of good and bad because when we first started, we thought we were hot stuff, and then we really didn't know what we were doing. And then we got better and better and better, taking classes and studying and things like that, the different skills. And I think our average mile per hour, ride went up about 10 miles an hour. And we started to kind of have more mishaps and things like that with the higher speeds. And, so people say, well, you get your skills and you'll be better off. But there's sort of that, you feel more emboldened when you get those. And so we've kind of come back down to earth, and we're just out there to enjoy the back roads, just like you guys. And when I started to hear the podcast, I said, we're pretty much similar. We make the t-shirts. Okay. So this is actually our most recent shirt. Okay. And at the back, it says No Chains Tour because we went on a trip to Ohio. No, we went to Kentucky, West Virginia, and we weren't going to eat in any chain restaurants. We weren't going to stay in any chain hotels. So we called it the No Chains Tour. And so
I love it, man. I'm stealing that. I'm stealing it.
It was really, it was a lot of fun. And so we've really built a lot of great memories. And I hope that people can find groups of people to ride with because it makes it so much more enjoyable when you're with people. I mean, before I started the group, I rode by myself often. It was, I would go to the coffee shop. The owner would say, hey, take this 200-mile ride down to Pennsylvania, get a steak sandwich, at Big Mike's. And I would take the trip by myself, and then when I started this group, I would say, hey guys, we're going to Big Mike's for a steak sandwich. And so we have sort of a repertoire of regular rides that we do, but I know you're going to hear people, it's controversial. Some people say, I can't ride with anybody. I want to ride alone because I can stop when I want. I can do this when I want. I can go the pace I want. I have found that I do enjoy riding alone because it's enjoyable. You're riding a motorcycle, but when you're riding with a few friends and they're close friends and you're in sync with them, that to me is really the pinnacle.
Yeah.
It's much different than a solo thing. It's already solo enough with you on the motorcycle, So, but that's a little bit about our club here. We're in Rochester, New York, but we've been around a lot. So, haven't been out your neck of the woods
Yeah.
yet.
I mean, well, yeah, we'll have to
Yeah.
converge in the middle at some point. But do you guys use communicators? I
Yeah.
presume.
So,
Then?
funny story. We were slowly getting into the Senas, and I was late to the party. And I would say
Sure.
a couple. What did it for me was we would have we're on our big trip in the summer. We do a week-long trip or whatever, and we were down in the back of the Dragon, Route 16, and there's this park at the bottom, the south end. It's Hungry Mother State Park. I didn't have a headset. Well, my friends did, and I was in front, and I passed an unmarked cop in the park. And of course, they couldn't tell me this guy's trying to pull you over. And so when I finally looked in my mirrors and I realized there was this cop behind me, he thought I was trying to run from him, and it was a complete catastrophe. And it was one of those things where you just you pass somebody at the wrong time, and it turns out to be an unmarked cop car, And so I think that my friends would have been quick to say, well, you better pull over, or we think that's a cop, don't go. But we're new Senas. We like the Senas. We've debated whether or not we're going to go back, or try something else. We've never done really the Cardos together, but we like the mesh.
Yeah.
And the mesh is just the one button, because the 10, I think we had the 10. I had a 10 for a while. You had to Bluetooth them up, but we're now running Senas, and I don't know, that has upped the game too. You're going to have people are going to say it's controversial. Well, you shouldn't be chatting when you're talking to people, but we will give each other, heads up on things, and sometimes it's too late anyways. If there's a deer here and you didn't see it or not, but we do like the communication.
I'm with you.
We break each other's chops. It's
yeah.
I'll back up a second here too. I remember before the age of Sena in these communication, I remember when I first started riding with these people, and we would go on these rides, and I would be like, geez, I hope I remember to say this when we stop. I hope I remember to say, hey, did you see this when we stop? Boy, I hope they saw this too. Let me ask them. And then you get to the end of the ride or your gas stop, and you forget to say something, whereas,
Right.
but then again, you get the guy on the, on the microphone who's making every stupid joke in the book, and you're like, I've had enough of it, That's like, it could be the best or the worst, but we typically, another thing that's kind of annoying potentially about the Senas is when you get that static. So when someone in the group has like a loose connection,
It's the Harley guy always.
Yeah.
It's always the Harley.
We have a couple people that we always point the finger at, and it's pretty much them, but
yeah, right.
But it's funny because we'll always say, well, listen, hey, I hear it, so it can't be me. It's kind of like if
Right.
you have an open channel,
I know
then
exactly what you're
if you
talking
don't hear
about.
it, it's probably you.
Yeah. No, I'm just laughing because that's Chris in our group every time. Well, that's the joke,
Yeah.
and he knows it.
Yeah, and we,
if you hold that mute button down, or if you hold the mesh button down, it will mute.
Well, we've done that. Oh my God. So, hey, it's like, okay, we're going to take turns muting. So for the next 10 miles, everyone's like, are you on? Who's off? Is Dave on? Who's this? And so,
Oh my gosh.
But you sort of get accustomed to background noise with that, and you can lower it and this and that. Yeah. Sometimes the microphones are just a little bit out of the way, but we really like them. And I'm in the habit now, and you're looking for tips for people. My first thing I do when I get to lunch stops is before I get off the bike, I clean my face shield, and I get off and I plug in my Sena, because I don't want the last hour to be one, especially if you're on a trip, right? You're going to the next hotel, and you get a little distracted, or you don't know where you're going. It's nice to have that communication. Although we all have the route usually on our GPS, and so it's not a crisis.
Yeah, but here's the newest, pain in the butt for me, John, on this. So I have a 2022 Goldwing now, right? And so it connects to your phone, so you have the full, like it's got a really nice
got two
screen.
Goldwings like that. Yeah.
It's great. If you don't have if you don't have the headset connected, it shuts
really?
everything off, including the root. So it's like, no, you
guess
have
what?
to have
Okay,
it. So,
you Goldwing owners, man, it's a first world problem. All right, it's like, I'm sorry, okay,
but we're so comfortable right now. You know what I'm saying?
No,
that's a very big annoyance for me if
Yeah.
I can't have my Android Auto playing on my screen. Like, what am I supposed to be
Well,
doing,
what you do
John?
is you pull out the fuse for like the Keurig coffee pot maker, and then you should be okay.
This is coming from the BMW guys with the heated head of everything.
Yeah,
So
BMW.
no, that's awesome.
Yeah, so no, but the
That's
Goldwing, we
awesome.
have two hardcores on Goldwings. We have the Myron, who I told you he's the 80-year-old guy, and then another one creeping up there
God.
too. He's probably in his mid-70s, a guy named Mike, and these guys are fantastic riders. They're great buddies, and we've been spending a lot of time together over the years, but they are Goldwing nuts. As a matter of fact, when Myron hit the deer, he's like, he said several years ago when he bought the one, it's like a 22 or something like that. He said, "This is my last one. I bought it, my last one." Well, guess what? His kids are telling him, the first thing his kids are saying, they're not saying, "Dad, how you doing? You feeling okay? You just hit a deer, Dad." They're like, "I think it's a time to upgrade, to the next 2025 Goldwing." It's like, yeah,
That is great.
I've never seen someone so happy they hit a deer. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to say happy, but like if you're on a trip and you have a mishap, you broke something, you tipped over, you got a ticket, something's, you got a black eye on this road trip. At least for the next half a day, 24 hours of you're just bumming. You know what I mean? And you're fighting the urge to be a Debbie Downer. And that, I tell you, Myron was like, "Oh, well, okay, give me the duct tape. Let's clean it up here." And by the way, he had video cameras running. So he's playing he's trying to find the video and everything at the hotel. And
that's awesome.
But it's like you try to, I guess, turn lemons into lemonade at that point. But yeah, our Goldwing guys are pretty hardcore. I don't think we have any. Those are the only two guys riding Goldwing now. And I say guys, we've tried opening up to females too, and we're really not like a toxic masculinity type of group. We're just regular people, medium. We're just regular, okay. We're just normal, okay. We're like men light, just okay. And we've tried to be welcoming to the female element, but what I've noticed is like the Harley groups tend to do it with their significant others. And same thing with the Goldwing people, the Goldwing clubs in particular. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And and then you have the spouse sometimes getting on a 3-wheeler. But actually, one of the guys in the Goldwings, his wife is on a Spider, but then they drive together and, take trips together. And so that's a good thing. But we're really just, we kind of leave our wives at home for this, even though some of our members in our group have a significant other that does ride. They typically don't come out with us, and they're lightweights. You know what I mean? They ride a couple times a year or this and that. But
we've experimented with the idea of kind of like riding out somewhere and having a meet up, maybe like fly in.
Yeah.
That's kind of on the agenda maybe sometimes. Yeah, except have the wives fly to say like Nashville.
It's actually,
and then we'll roll down.
So it's interesting you say that because I started this group as kind of like a local group, and we originally met every other Sunday. And then I thought about maybe when I retired doing like a USA SMAT, where it's okay, we're going to go to Arizona in October. We're going to go to Tail of the Dragon in May. And so we go with our significant others, you trailer them or whatever, and we have like little meets. And so you envision a situation where, there's 20 couples, give or take, and like maybe 8 or 7 of them go to different ones at different times. But it's taken years for us to gel. I mean, when we go to pass a car or something like that, I know what the guy in front of me and behind me is going to do. I just, without even the sentence,
Yeah.
I just know. I can tell because it's kind of like your brothers. You've been with them so many times through the thick and thin. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, we've had to cheer a guy up for this or that. You know what I mean? And
well, we talked about that because we've had two guys now that kind of went through divorces in the, not too distant past, and both of them said, that was the best thing to go on that motorcycle trip right during that time. And it was basically you hate to say therapy session because we did not give probably the best advice, but it's just, I think you said brotherhood. And I think it's just knowing that you can kind of just be unplugging and then just talk about whatever. It's really been good. A couple guys had the divorces. Myself and another gentleman had been through, layoffs or whatever. And
you're there.
Pretty cool.
You're there for them. And it's interesting because we occasionally will do things socially outside of riding on occasion. But really, we kind of have our own separate lives. And then we converge on this one common thing, but we help each other. We're there for each other.
Yeah.
And
right on.
So they're almost like family. One of the things early on I said, I formed the group. So I was a MSF coach at the time. I'm like, you can't come without the right gear. That's, you're wearing the gear and that's it, or you just can't ride with us. But I also said no politics. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever your politics are, we don't want to talk about it. Sometimes like politics will come up and we'll say, just guys, we're not going to talk about it. Now, that being said, over the past, 10 years at least, people have been leaning more towards those discussions. And I try to nip them in the bud because I think it's like sports and motorcycling, we do this to kind of get away from the daily barrage of just conflict. Then, we try to say, maybe we'll say, okay, Ducati's not as good as BMW. Okay. We can maybe have those discussions, but, or they tried to convince me to buy a Shoei helmet for so many years because I was wearing this other helmet and I love the helmet. I got to say, I was really glad I upgraded to it. So that's important that you have those people and
the Ducati bikes are fine. It's just the riders that are the problem, right?
We have a guy, he's probably 70 years old and he has had an original 1977 Ducati that he takes on trips. He's been going on, he's been in the club for a long time. He stopped really taking longer rides with us, but this guy was on like a naked monster doing week-long trips with us. Okay. In his 60s. It's like never complained. And he works on his own bikes, and so he's really an interesting guy. And so
that's awesome.
Our Ducati riders aren't your typical Ducati rider. Another one has like BMWs and all kinds of bikes, couple Ducatis, one in England, one here, this other guy that comes to coffee night. So tonight, actually, when I'm done with you, I'm going to go out to the coffee shop because that's where we meet on Thursday nights. And,
see, we gotta fire that part of it up because we don't have that piece integrated
what happened
yet.
was there was when I was starting the club in 2009, about 10 years before that, a guy who rode motorcycles with his son, they opened up a coffee shop and their friends would show up on Thursday nights. And so it kind of became like a bike night. Okay. And I think the heyday of it's over. I would say on a good night before COVID, you probably would get maybe 15, 20 bikes there. Now you're in the range of like maybe 8 to 10 and people show up in their cars. Guys come from work. We got a doctor buddy. He leaves the hospital, comes, says hi and goes back. So that's the Thursday nights. And so this guy from England, we only really see him there. So we have a nice kind of vibe where some people don't even ride with us. They just come have coffee and we know them every week from that.
Great.
So.
Yeah, that's great. When I think about like, this has been fun talking about, I was trying to ask one real question, maybe. What do you suggest for people as they because one of the things is we ride these things around some, then we load them up with a whole bunch of gear and then go on a big long trip. Talk to me about like tips and tricks maybe that people could do with a heavy bike, maybe that they're not used to. I mean, what would you
Yeah.
suggest
So
there?
I guess if you bring up a heavy bike, you're talking about weight, and
I am
it's,
sorry. Yeah, good,
yeah,
good,
and
good
you're
point.
talking about weight. And so if you think about what a motorcycle is doing when you're riding it, especially if you're in curvy roads and, those back road environments and things like that, the chassis is going to be pitching forward and rear. And the more
Mhm.
weight you have on the bike, it's going to put even more weight forward or rearward. And I guess if you're not used to riding your bike loaded down, that could cause a little bit of a surprise for you if the weight's shifting more than you anticipate it, or you're ready for it. And so one of the things I would suggest, and what I talk about in my Corner and Confidence book and courses and things like that,
Mhm.
I have two kind of guiding principles. You got the one of them is the flat principle, and the other one is the straight principle. Straight is real quick, just trying to keep the motorcycle more vertically upright in the curve. So
Mhm.
that set aside, well, I mean, even if you look at that, so you want to move your kiss the mirror, if you will, body positioning, so that your bike, maybe because the suspension's compressed more because it's weighted down, you might want to have it
Mhm.
a little bit more upright so the suspension could do a better job. Okay, but my primary thinking behind managing the weight would be more with the flat principle, which has to do with keeping the front and rear suspensions in their sweet spot. Okay. And so the way we do this is we're using lighter pressure on the brakes over a longer distance. Okay. So lighter, longer braking versus a shorter, stronger type braking, where you have this heavy loaded down bike and you're waiting, and then braking at the last minute. So what's happening is you can see you're compressing those forks past the
Right.
sweet spot. And so now if there's a bump, if there's a pothole, if too much weight gets shoved up on there and you mash the forks compressed fully, that could be a surprise. It's tough to recover from. Another thing too, see with your Gold Wing and other heavier bikes, if your listeners
Mhm.
have, these bigger touring bikes, BMWs, Gold Wings, you have a link braking system. So if you are using front braking, as you're in the twisties, it's going to give a little bit of rear brake as well. And one of the things that I try to tell people is that, your rear brake can slow the motorcycle with less fork dive. Okay. So instead of adding
Right.
more front brake, we can have some rear, and that's going to slow the bike with lesser fork dive. And so if you have a Gold Wing or a linked system, if you're just using your front brake to throttle transitions in the twisties, which is very common because of the size and weight of your motorcycle,
Mhm.
it's going to keep the rear brake coming on a little bit to reduce your fork dive or your front end collapsing more. So
Sure.
if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
one of these individuals listening that has a motorcycle that doesn't have linked brakes, you can manage the pitch of your motorcycle with, regard to your
That's
braking by adding some rear brake. Now, I will say that when what I teach in the book and in the courses is when we're in the twisties, really just front brake to throttle transitions with a longer, lighter braking scenario is going to be better than using the rear brake, because you're sort of keeping your body in a more athletic position. Moving to the rear brake is sort of a little bit overkill at that point. And we don't want to use the rear brake too much because we could slide out and have problems with that high side. Well, in the situation where the motorcycle's heavier, you may want to use rear brake kind of in that straight line. And then usually what I'll do,
okay.
if I really need to add more braking, I'll brake with my rear in a straight line, and then before I tip in while I'm still on the front brake, I'll release the rear. And so these things can, so
Okay.
I guess to summarize what I just said in like a quick sentence
Yeah.
is just think about keeping your motorcycle from pitching forwards and rearwards on braking and throttle. Try to smooth that
Yep.
out. That's what people can mostly take from that.
That's
And I
great.
think that'll help.
And yeah, anything else that you tell people that are just maybe on their first, if you had somebody join for the next first big ride, what other advice would you give them?
Well, regarding handling their motorcycle or interacting with the other riders.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just being quiet on the Senas is I mean, we just
Yeah.
turn them off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, if I had someone new to our group, it's funny because you tell people, you've heard the cliche, ride your own ride, but that's really not specific behaviors. And so one of the things that I really like to tell people, especially when they're newer and they come in with us, the last thing we want to hear if someone goes off the road is, well, I was just going the speed that Billy went in, to the corner. And it's like, well, okay, I get that. But I like to tell people, listen, no one's going to leave you behind. No one's going to make you feel bad. We're here for you. Okay. But you have to take that corner to speed you're comfortable at. And you can't join our group and be and instantly get the telepathy and the, I guess, the pace that we're going. It's going to take some time, but if you know a newer motorcycle or a returning rider, they just want to drink from a fire hose. They want to be better so bad right now. And it's just, there's no magic wand you can wave. Seat time and the knowledge. That's why the book opens up with, confidence equals knowledge plus experience, because you can shortcut it if you spend a good amount of time in a short period of time doing the riding and then practicing the knowledge, the skills. In fact, you can get to the end result quicker, but nothing really substitutes for the miles. Another thing I'll say is, if you live in a relatively flat place, it could take you a year to go through as many curves as if you took a ride from your house to North Carolina and Tennessee and back. You see, so you can you can accelerate the process by putting yourself in the riding environments that are going to give you the practice you need to excel to the next level, basically.
Yeah. We talk about roads in the Midwest here, but tell us like maybe one of your favorite roads, because you're out east,
so
right?
we're in New York. So we're near Buffalo, Niagara Falls. Okay. So there's New York City, which is not us. Okay. That's 7 hours away. We're the opposite end of the state. So we have what's called the Finger Lakes in the central New York area.
Okay.
So
yeah.
that's very hilly. So we have adequate riding for curve lovers right outside our front door. But we go into Pennsylvania, which is about a 2-hour ride. That's where it gets really interesting. And then we can make it down to West Virginia and into Tennessee, in these areas where Kentucky, Southeast Ohio, where they're very technical in Southeast Ohio. And so now you say, well, geez, what are we going to do today? We're going to take a half-day ride to the Finger Lakes. Okay. It's kind of like womp womp. We got to do this a minor curvy roads. But so that's kind of where we're going. But we've been pretty much, we call them trailer trips. So I think our annual trip, we've done like maybe 5 trailer trips out of, 10 of them, or probably, I think we've done more than 10, but a trailer trip is basically we'll trailer out to Colorado, South Dakota, Arkansas, and so we Utah. So we'll call those like trailer trips because they're just what they sound like. Because within a week's time, it's going to take you 2 days to get there and back each end. And so you want to ride while you're out there. So we don't do too many of those because we do like to just leave out of our garage and go down. So we spend a lot of time going to the Tail of the Dragon. We're down in West Virginia a lot. And so we really like the Appalachian Mountains. Okay. And I know you guys have some mountainous areas out where you are, but we just haven't put it into our repertoire, you know?
Yeah, we'll have to get you out here to try Wisconsin. It's kind of like it sounds boring, but it's like a mini version of
Okay.
Tennessee. That it's not as much elevation, but like we call it riding the alphabet up here. It's all the county roads are A, B, C, D, and so you ride the alphabet and you find your way.
Yeah, the alphabet. I've heard you guys talk about all the routes up there. Um,
Yeah,
I have a couple tips that
Yeah.
I wanted to
love it.
share. When we talk about the gear, one of the things I've
Mhm.
noticed, when I wanted to speak back to you guys, about your podcast, I'm like, man, these guys aren't getting the gloves thing. It's like, so the first thing that I realized is I want good gloves. So I spend the money on gauntlet gloves, helds. I want as much as possible. About, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I had a pair of those, like the summer ones with no cuff or anything. And I just touched it
Yep.
and it fell apart. And I'm like, 'cause my sweat must have ruined it or something. And I'm like, geez, how much do you really like your hands? And so, I decided now I'm going to wear really expensive gloves, really good gloves. And I have them for kind of different seasons, but I really like the gauntlet. I heard of, someone in a magazine review was talking about like that really fleshy part right here behind your hand at your wrist. And I said, I got to protect this. And so I know I'm kind of in the minority probably with my buddies too. They have, limited gloves. One of the things I've done recently too is I bought a pair of heated gloves with batteries off of Amazon,
Yeah.
and
I was looking
they're
at
$60
those.
and they're really good. And so to kind of piggyback on the gloves thing, if you have your
Yeah.
phone on a mount, I haven't found a pair of gloves that work the best for your fingertips. So you go on Amazon and you buy like a 10-pack of these styluses, and you can just stick them in your tank
Okay.
bag, stick them out of your tank bag so you can just kind of grab it easy.
There's another little stuff, and I'll put a link here too for you, but it's like called like nano tips or something. And it's actually like a liquid
Tried that, and I
that
I couldn't get it to work. I tried it.
it might not work with maybe it's
So
only
I
cheap
tried.
gloves.
Does it work for you?
I've used it and it has worked, but my issue was it ended up like it was almost like there was an oil left over. So then it was like my whole screen was like,
That review, and I'm like,
like-
oh, I could just put a dot of this stuff on my fingers and everything's gonna work. And I just remember it kind of flopped. But you know what? I don't want to
Yeah.
disparage the company. Maybe I just put it on wrong, or it was not the right type of glove. But I
Yeah.
bought the heated gloves, battery powered ones off Amazon, like in the spring, and so I really didn't get a chance to use them that much. And then just this past weekend, it was getting a little cold in the morning. It was in like the 40s. And what's nice about these gloves too is they kind of have they have a little bit of protection in them, but then it's like a rain shield. They're almost like
Oh.
made out of, almost like you could make them as a winter glove with even the heat not working.
Okay.
And sometimes when I have it on high, I don't know if I think it could be warmer than it is. So I don't think they're perfect. And if you had the money, maybe you want to
Yeah.
spring for a better pair of them. But I think battery powered gloves, because think about the piece of gear that you struggle with the most, it's the gloves. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, you mentioned, or actually I was talking to the Bond lady and, Kristen, and she, like, I think you may have mentioned this earlier. Like, you don't want to be thinking about how your gloves are fitting when you're riding down the road, right? Like, I mean, if we want to keep safety first, yeah, I'm with you
yeah.
on that.
So again, but if people want to wear different things, I mean, like my friend wears hiking boots. Sometimes, I hit instead of motorcycling boots. I mean, we have sort of, I'm not going to say we're not gear snobs anymore. We still are, but we have stepped it down. Like if we're going to go to bike night tonight, you're riding 10 miles, people will wear sneakers. And we got a guy who likes to take one of
Sure.
the Goldwyn guys, like both of the Goldwyn guys actually prefer kind of like the open face 3/4 thing. And which typically we would never have
Yeah.
allowed, but we're kind of saying, hey, these guys know what they're doing at this point, But so that
Right.
was one of the things. But I do want to share. I got a couple other things, but I'll save those for maybe
Oh, I love
maybe
it.
another
Oh,
time.
you're
But
fine. Share it.
I got an idea for when I pull into my garage, I got a heavy GS. Okay. And when I go to back it out to ride it, our cars are parked in the driveway, right? And so I'm like, well, what are these turntables all about? Right? How do you make it so you can pull in and then turn your bike around? So I did a research and I found a Lazy Susan bearing and boards and stuff like that. And I was able to put on the center stand, if it's on the center stand, and then swivel it around. But I'm looking for even more, simplicity. So I was scouring YouTube and all these things. And you know those discs you use for like moving furniture? If you put
the
so
robo discs or
I
whatever
don't
they're
know
called.
how well a Goldwing would do this, but my GS, I can put two of these, like maybe there were these 5-inch discs under each of the center stand pegs,
like the 3 points.
So I just put
yeah.
It's on the cement floor. So if you put like a piece of more slippery cardboard or some other type of thing, I think I have like a harder kind of like floorboarding stuff that goes underneath your floors. Well, whatever it is. And you can just then lift up the front wheel and you can swivel this thing around and your bike's pointing out. And I'll tell you, the Goldwing I have reverse and it's a longer bike. I don't know, but if you got a center stand,
I have forward and reverse, John. Like I don't even know what
but I'll tell you this, the sense, like the satisfaction, the satisfaction of being able to just turn my motorcycle around.
I love it.
It takes 30 seconds.
You're going to have to send a video.
It takes 30 seconds.
Definitely.
I get off my bike. I put these things under.
I love it.
Swivel it around, and then I move my way, and I'm like pointing out. It's like, it's the nuts. And it's like, it was like, I think I bought a pack that was on sale of like 6 of these things for $7 or something like that. But so these are some of the things I'm jazzed about lately. The stylus pens, the gloves. I just, there's so many neat little things out there. We could talk more in the future about them, but
yeah, let's do that because it's like, it's always changing, right? Like, and like, I love it. Like, you can buy, there's like a $700 reversible, 3-angle thing, which is great, but like, I love the hack, right?
Next
like, the
time
hack is
you
what
want to just go down a rabbit hole on YouTube, just search motorcycle turntable. You can't believe the contraptions people build. I threw a couple of discs on the floor, you know what I mean? And and around it goes.
It just automatically makes me think of, loading a motorcycle with a really narrow rail. Like it can be built
right. It's like motorcycle loading fails, on YouTube. You can watch those forever, but.
Hey, John, this has been a great conversation. Why don't you tell people maybe how to get the book at least and stuff like that and where they can connect with you?
I usually tell people the easiest way to get to me is go to corneringconfidence.com. You're going to see the book, online courses available. I have a couple online courses that go companionship to the book. They just take it to a different level. There are some things in the online course that aren't in the book. There's some things in the book that aren't in the online course. They're kind of meant to go together. I took some of the content out of the Cornering Confidence online course and put into a trail breaking shorter course just to teach that, because if anyone's interested in learning more about this buzz technique of trail breaking, that's kind of like the cherry on top of the sundae. The Cornering Confidence book kind of brings you to that conclusion at the end where you're having the whole sundae and then the trail breaking part of it, which is kind of like the missing link in the evolution, I think, of a rider's training. It will become more apparent to them. And so they can always contact me if they have any questions about what I'm doing, whether it's just,
awesome
touring or training or whatever. I'm really glad I'm part of the BMR crew now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that might be a badge you're wearing. It's a little shinier than it needs to.
I do want to, thank you for having me on. I want to thank you for what you're doing with this podcast. I know that a lot of work goes into it, and I think you're reaching a lot of people, and you really do. I think that the length of the episodes, it's just a 20 minutes, a ride to work. because people can go
Yeah.
on and on and on as we're probably figuring out with this podcast right here. But I just want to say thanks again. So,
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's
All
been a
right.
pleasure.